just recently we had a very close call to an incident happening with Peter the Insider. I mean, in fact, it was more than a close call. It was something that was finite. It did happen. But the team pulled together. They were remarkable. The strength, the power, the focus. We were secured, contained, and protected. We did our best to do so. But it brought a lot of questions. After Peter did return and started talking about what happened to him, I just stepped back and listened and waited. Waited for him to address the public and talk about his experience. And as devastating as it was, I think many people didn't fully understand. It's hard to wrap your head around, especially when it comes to some of these metaphysical things that are happening in the process. We are not dealing with the average type of mission. These are missions that are very, very difficult. They're crossing over into planes of existence that humanity doesn't really know how to prepare for. In most cases, we'll never know how to prepare for. But Peter being willing to go out and take that step to go into unknown locations, realities, and time travel. Whatever the experience is, he accepts what the terms are, and again, after everything that happened, he dusted himself off and he said he was going on another mission. And my question to him was, are you ready to go on that other mission? Should you really do that right away? And he said, I'm a soldier. And that's what we do. So I thought I would sit back and think a lot about what he had told me and what the mission entailed. And I want to express again how fortunate I feel that we have this incredible team that was there and ready and prepared for whatever was ahead of us. I started to do some research, stepping back and looking at some of our older recordings and things that Peter had talked about. And I stumbled on a show that was very, very interesting. And I want to play some of that show for you because it brings us back to what had happened, what we've been dealing with, starting with the shadow group, and also a secret organization that was involved. In my journey of listening through this old archive show, I started stumbling on other things that were related to it. And so, as we go down that rabbit hole, and it gets really weird very fast. However, to shed some light on what has actually been happening. Peter's mission went from one location and then ended up in another. He ended up in a place called the Tribec Mountains, and we're going to go into that a little bit more in depth about there is actually some history of many missing people or injured people from that location with unexplained causes. And there was a movie called Crack. It's also called The Rift, depending on the translation. And they do not have English subtitles, which was really difficult because when Peter was gone, I heard from his wife, Chloe, and she told me what happened was something out of the Tribec Mountains, and she recommended that I watch the movie. So of course, it's the first thing I did. And what I discovered is something that I want to share with you. But before I get into that, there's going to be a series of different topics that are going to come up in this video. So just follow with me and follow the thread. of what I have to share. Here is some inserted information about Peter the Insider regarding this hidden group called SCP, which is also called Secure, Contained, and Protect. And there's a warning regarding this organization, but I didn't recall or remember that, according to Peter, this organization is run by the Shadow Group. So Peter begins by talking about the worldwide military corporations in the ACIO-official organization website. This organization.
Oh, this is crazy.
Okay, so this is related to Lynch or Martin Burke, which he goes by both names.
Yes.
We know him as Patrick Wilson, and this is the one that's behind the Shadow Group.
Yeah, technically, Shadow Group. He was the founder of Shadow Group.
Right, and the movie that sort of reveals his behavior, you see that the A-Team. And so we have to use this as references for people to understand. And
that's the problem. That's from my point of view, that's the main part of problem, that why people, I don't want to say directly don't believe us, but have some sort of problems and whatever. And to be perfectly honest, if I will be in their place, I don't want to say that I will say, it's BS, it's nonsense. But it will be like, okay, but what in the world? All of the stuff, the main stuff, what those guys are saying, I'm talking about, like, for example, us, it's based just on movies, TV shows, games, whatever. And that's it.
So essentially what Peter's saying is that people are not taking us serious. What he is identifying that some of these movies are literally disclosing things that are occurring, and the individuals, they look just like these individuals, that are playing as actors, but they are not, per se exactly that person. But it is an entity that is moving around with that persona, that image, or even looking identical to them. And so it's been really a struggle to try to reveal this information and to gain credibility to some degree until people started to see that these individuals are really acting out, similar to like Kevin Spacey and some others that, clearly have levels of power, like Taylor Swift is another one that that there's something else going on there that is enhancing them, and or that they have more power than the average human, obviously. So yeah, he's saying that the levels of frustration and everything, that we try to bring in the concept of soft disclosure, even storylines and like Call of Duty, that has actually played out, and the characters that are essentially involved, and this group called the Shadow Group, which, he's saying it's very transparent. They're right here. They're showing who they are, but they've done so much damage, and they went down our timeline in the past and have altered many things. And, this is one of the many issues that are creating problems that are putting not just Peter and his team in harm's way, but the rest of the world, essentially. But the discovery of this group called the SCP was founded by Martin Burke, as we'll say it like that. It was founded by him, and then so that's where it becomes quite interesting. to see the link. And I actually forgot about this piece because it is very, very important to take a look at this organization.
Organization, like, truly weird.
It's a very strange organization. If you notice right here, it says, so this is secure, contain, protect.
Yeah.
And access by unauthorized personnel is strictly prohibited. Perpetrators will be tracked, located, and detained. This is, I guess, if you dig too deeply into this database.
Yeah.
I mean, and this is not from the dark web or anything like that. It's just really easy to access it, but it's kind of ambiguous. You're like, well, what is this? It's kind of, it's a little weird. Here's like a little Wanderer's Library, and it's like children's stories, but it's almost like there's an agenda behind their information that they're releasing. Now, this is...
Sorry for interrupting you, but children's stories or fairy tales for children, just by the way, okay? It's, help me. Okay, I got it. Disney agenda, like Disney projects.
Right.
Like trigger words and the symbols, do you know what I mean? And all kind of those things, just by the way.
Yeah, kind of the cultish type of information, so people become adapted to it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yep.
So, and I was, then there's these weird symbols that, I don't know, for some reason sort of reminded me of Pokemon, and
are those
these collectibles that people had. So he goes on to talk about Pokemon a bit, and you notice that these are nations and they have this symbol. And at some point I actually mentioned that these shapes remind me of a record, like those inserts that you put on like a 45 that we used to have. So it's related to records. And so we have, this long discussion. It goes back and forth regarding this organization. Their connections to different places where they actually have an office or, a station in these regions. And so there's a presence there. And so we didn't really dig too far into what this organization is. But I did think it was very, very interesting because later on, I discovered something else. I discovered this video, which was also related to the SCP file. And it's about Ronald Reagan, who's cut up while talking, is a corrupted Betamax recording of Ronald Reagan's Evil Empire speech from March 1983. And then they dive into the information. This is somebody named Billy Styler, which I don't know. I get in trouble for I would like to think that people do not get angry at me for promoting their website or their YouTube channel, but sometimes people do. I don't know why. But anyhow, here, the same thing, you can take a look that they bring up also, this website. There you go, SCP Foundation. But they find this, they say that there was this Betamax of Ronald Reagan talking. And I remember hearing about this a long time ago, a while back when this came out. They have the dates and everything when this occurs. They say it's at 1981. And so he begins talking. He says these really bizarre things, and then you start seeing these cut marks in his face. So did this happen? Did it not happen? Are we having overlays of experiences of something happening? Or, some people say, this is something in the Matrix. But imagine, you're time traveling, or you're, exploring to see what's going to happen in our future, and and then you stumble on things like this, and these weird, crazy anomalies of time and records. And so they have these series of of Ronald Reagan speaking, and I was just thinking about Ronald Reagan and how he had this form of presence and strength. And then you find out later that there is more to this. Some people might say, well, this is all fake, it's fabricated. My feeling is that it's not fake. But was this the actual thing that happened, or is this another incident that happened that was recorded? It's kind of like one of those weird things that, in like a Mandela effect type of incident. And they talk about really crazy things such as, you can hear his voice. I'll let you listen to these videos yourself, but you can hear his voice. The lip sync doesn't match. So, maybe they threw in some other footage in the background, but it does sound like his voice. Here again, people can argue that it's real fake, or one of those programs that they can replicate someone's voice. Someone did that with me actually years ago, and I know that some people still to this day don't believe it, but I was never on this person's show, and they literally had my name and my voice, but it wasn't me. So is that a time anomaly, or what exactly happened there? To this day, I have no, direct answer, but I'm pretty sure that, they do have that technology if someone wanted to do that. But there was actually a newspaper article with the individual who found this Betamax in this archive that worked for this company, and they contacted the police without going to the upper levels of the corporation. And apparently there was the police were like, we don't really know what to do with this, because they didn't see it as directly fake. But Americans that were far more willing to participate in, it says cannibalism, than they have in the past 100 wars, just really crazy comments. And then he's laughing at weird situations, and of course he starts to degrade on the screen. And then there's this other piece of this individual who's here wearing this weird robe covering his face. So, and this right here doesn't even look like Reagan. I don't understand that picture right there, but the rest of it does look like him, and it does sound like it has his voice. But quite an interesting video. So you might be saying, well, why in the world are you bringing this up? And I started looking at this SCP file and started thinking about some of the things that over the series of time and talking with Peter, pulling and stringing things together, maybe would be helpful to you, it started to make sense to me. And so, and he, he's not trying to construct anything or to create a narrative. Things are literally just happening. So I'm trying to understand all the different pieces that are involved. There is something else that should be looked at, and that is related to the TV show Archive 81. So Archive 81 is also about these videos that get played. Trying to do this without it shutting down on me. And you see like a series of almost like a warehouse or something like, people talk about the Akashic records and how there's all sorts of books everywhere. In this case, these are archives, and some of the disclosure with Peter was that Archive 81, and you can see that there's all sorts of different, let's see if I can find the area where you see all of the videos. And there's, levels of dark behavior and Satanism is some kind of cult. This kind of a common theme that happens between the storylines of what we're looking at, and there's a woman that he's in search of what had happened to her. But Here's the videos. It looks very similar to the one that they were talking about regarding Ronald Reagan. And getting back to that, remember Peter mentioned Archive 81 being connected to Area 81 on Mars. This is SCP-1981. There's 81 again. So could this be related to Archive 81 and the Betamax coming from a location like that, connecting to Mars, which is creating another overlay in our reality? Peter also talked about a polygon. And I don't know if anyone remembers in the last show, there was a strange polygon structure found buried beneath the surface of Mars. Is that a little breadcrumb? A little something to remind us of what was happening?
Miami creature sighting.
There's this thing that is related to the Miami creatures. What was interesting is the Ronald Reagan video is related to a speech that took place, I believe, in Orlando, Florida. Now we're looking at Miami. These were 8 to 10 feet tall creatures that they saw right around the time with Peter missing. And they came out looking like they were shadows. Now, I thought that was interesting as well. And I know that people are saying, well, why are you bringing this up? You know, this is a false flag. There's something about it that feels a little less like a false flag and maybe have some more truth. Here's some footage from TikTok. There's a weird light like an orb, like Peter talked about, these orbs. And something weird. And this is at the mall. I'm saying, is that a portal? What is that? So let's take a look a little further. When you look at the movie Crack, there were orbs that showed up. Peter talked about fairies, but there were orbs that showed up in the movie, and they would hover around the space. Right around this area. Slovak Bermuda Triangle, the Tribec Mountains. And people would go missing. I wouldn't be surprised if people would go missing in what happened in Miami. I also thought something else was very interesting. So let's take a look at the timeline of the shadow group and its relationship to Florida. This is actually the first jump that I recorded or had listed here is on July 2022. Shadow group stepped through a portal in Florida and jumped into the future to create a nuclear event that the Council of Five appeared to assist. Florida has been an area that I've mentioned multiple times that the shadow group were involved with. So for them to show up in Florida is not surprising to me. The next jump goes to 1972. Here again, the initial breach of the fabric of our context of existence. The shadow group used Western Florida to jump back into 1972. Western Florida could also be around the Miami area. And, you know, it just goes to various different locations. You see that it affects the stock market. Also over in France and in that area, in Rome. Here again, 2022, the 9th breach, South Beach, Florida. 10th breach, Vero, South Beach, Florida, Vero Beach. 2006. Then it goes again to Naples, Florida, the 11th breach, 2033. And then it comes back around again to 2023. It doesn't necessarily say Florida, but it does say Mars. So it did the 21st breach to Myanmar. From here, the dark forces were distributed to Mars, Jupiter, Pluto, and the Moon to further gain the control of the galaxy. So Mars related to Area 81 that we were talking about earlier. So linking it all together. An article that came out, let me look at the date. June 2023, Irish UFO experts believe orbs discussed in a NASA meeting are a global defense network. The NASA meeting on Wednesday heard details of how metallic orb UFOs have been spotted all over the world. The Irishman has been studying the UFOs for more than 20 years, says he believes the phenomena are a global defense network. That makes sense to me because of the way that these orbs would come up and seem to triangulate, sometimes particularly by threes. And here is some of the information that he's showing. So yes, we can say fairies and some kind of entities that Peter was talking about. But there's a lot to, you can see all the different history of these orbs showing up in very interesting ways. And I also mentioned to Peter that is it related to the Foo Fighters as well. Here it is, these white orbs. In Malaysia Airlines, there were also footage regarding these orbs that were circling around the plane, and they were unexplainable, and then they disappeared and went into another reality. Flying orbs film spinning around the plane shows proof of teleportation in MH370 theory. Peter said that he went into one location in Canada and he was somehow directed to Tribec Mountains. And that was not where they were planning on going. And he's not a novice at this. So he knew that something terribly went wrong. And he ended up getting severely injured, fatally injured. But with all of these different things happening at this time, I thought it was interesting to try to pull it together and think a little bit about what may be happening around our world, what is bleeding through at this time. So with all these different ideas, I hope this makes sense to everyone. And I wanted to share this information, hopefully that we can have more people looking into and discussing some of the findings that I had, and also trying to see how it's impacting our world currently today. I mean, that is a serious issue, and something has seriously changed. Oh yeah, before I go any further, because Peter did specifically mention fairies, let's take a look at that really quick before we close off. I also want to bring this part up. Unusual videos are shared by residents in Orlando, Florida. And this happened January 8th, 2024. Take a look at that.
Hold on, I can't really see it. Is that it?
It's the orbs.
Wait, hold on.
Oh, there's lots. Some of them are on the corner.
Oh my god, okay, I see something. Something's up.
There you go.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, 70, 71, 72, 73, 74, 75, 76, 77, 78, 79, 80, 81, 82, 83, 84, 85, 86, 87, 88, 89, 90, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, 100, 101, 102, 103, 104, 105, 106, 107, 108, 109, 110, 111, 112, 113, Oh my God,
They're
I never seen so.
in formation. So I'll let you take a look at this for yourself. So there's another incident of these orbs, which I believe coincides with what had happened to Peter. Here's some history regarding fairies and what they can do. Fairies are magical, mystical beings. They're just as real as we are. They're just not necessarily in the 3D form. They go in and out of realities. For those who are fortunate enough to encounter some good fairies, it's kind of a very fun and wonderful experience. I believe it brings a form of youth and love for life. They're nature spirits, essentially. There's a lot of information on fairies. Majority of them will not be harmful. If they see that you're messing around with nature, getting into their space, they may be mischievous with you, but for the most part, will not do anything really horrible. If you're getting a really negative reaction to something that you think are fairies, it's possible that they are not fairies and they are another species. There's many different species on the earth, and for so much that's been written about fairies, I know it's kind of fun to mock. It's almost like a childhood type of belief system. But for many cultures, it's, if there's a fairy circle in Ireland, for example, they will leave it alone. They will not build around it. They will move a road around it, and they show some level of respect. But the fairies, of course, then help them in return. People have drawn them. They've been talking about them. It's the magic of our earth. It's the energy of our earth. So when Peter said that, there's fairies there, and typically they're known to take, I think some lore brings up that they take children or they take people into their realm and they don't come back. So that could explain some missing persons issues. But as far as, these angry fairies that bite and attack, of course, they have their defense mechanisms that would operate. The ones with the sharp wings, that to me sounds like there's something else, is some form of alteration that's happened, if in fact it is some of the fairies. But I believe that there's, like I say, there's an array of good and bad. But the ones that dealt with Peter, these are not the typical ones that were known to be in that area. And it sounds like they had some kind of shredding or scratching effect, but maybe I'm wrong, because if you go into the storyline of the Tribec Mountains, this man, Jan Antonin Bata, the Slovak Henry Ford, established his Bata shoe production factory in 1939. He didn't anticipate many years later that the Bata shoes would walk the streets of Istanbul or Tokyo. He decided to take a walk to the Black Castle. He didn't come back and was found several months later bewildered and with numerous burns. He couldn't have anticipated the story would offer inspiration to writers, filmmakers, conspiracy theories, fans, and curious tourists. So this is a real thing. This happens. And there are other locations around the world similar to it. Just the reference of that it's connected or similar to the Bermuda Triangle, where there's a missing persons issue. There's many of these type of triangles around the world. So to me, this was really not very strange for someone that's done kind of observed and looked into paranormal and different types of phenomenon. And I've done this for many years. So for me, the story wasn't that strange. The fact that they attacked him so heavily, that was a little surprising to me, because Peter also got lost in that region when he was a young boy, and they were good to him and they helped him back. So, and he had an encounter with some animals where he could telepathically communicate with them in that very same region. And then suddenly it became a hostile incident. So, which didn't sound right to me, but I guess there's more investigation in this. And maybe Peter feels like sharing, maybe he doesn't. But for future references, we're grateful that things did work out so far, although we still have a lot ahead of us. So I'll say thank you for listening and helping me to walk through and examine all of these different pieces that seem to come together to explain some of the experiences that Peter had. Also, what is happening around our world right now, particularly in Florida, in many other regions. There was also some footage regarding CERN. I'm not really sure the authenticity, but I was fairly close to CERN when a lot of these things happened in France. And so, well, while I was in France, a lot of these things happened. And of course, CERN was not that far away. So I knew that things were brewing. I wanted to keep an eye on it. And I wanted to keep you informed. So thank you for listening, and you have a good day.